Going to get started in a minute here. We're just letting everybody join into the Zoom, but welcome. Give it another minute or two to allow for a few late stragglers. I know many people have been having some technical issues this afternoon, so thank you for your patience. Just for a little bit of housekeeping while people are still joining. Throughout the course of the presentation, please feel free to put any questions you have in the chat or in the Q&A. We'll be monitoring that, and we'll be answering those at the end with the Q&A session with the panel. All right, well, I think we'll go ahead and get started. We're really excited to have you join us here this evening. So I do want to welcome you to this event. I'm Laura Offit. I am a physician and I am the founder of International Adolescent Health Week. And I love the Philly events the most because International Adolescent Health Week actually started here in Philadelphia. This call to action was started as Pennsylvania Teen Health Week in 2016, was actually celebrated as a Global Teen Health Week in 2018, and has expanded to International Adolescent Health Week, celebrated each year in March since then. The mission of International Adolescent Health Week is to inspire adolescents and their communities to advocate for a successful transition into adulthood. And so organizations all around the world try to do this with either educational outreach, enhanced health screenings, school events, or events focusing on youth activism. And what's really great about tonight's event is that it's a combination of education and activism. So part of our presentation this evening is going to be a wonderful educational session put together by our Temple medical students. And then there's a Q&A session at the end with the panelists who've been invited to join. And so we encourage you to submit any questions or comments in the chat box or the Q&A so that the panelists can handle those at the end. So I do want to wish everyone a happy International Adolescent Health Week, and I'm really excited to be here to celebrate along with all of you. So with that, I will turn it over to Dr. Garfield.
Okay, so thank you, Dr. Offit. I am thrilled to be here to introduce all of our panelists and our medical students who will be giving this presentation. To begin with, my name is Jamie Garfield. I'm a pulmonary and critical care physician at the Temple Lung Center, and my areas of interest are tobacco, lung cancer, tobacco, and also vaping. And in this regard, I have done a number of educational sessions for Philadelphia youth on this topic, and I've done this pre-COVID with Temple medical students when we were in person, and when I met up with Dr. Offit, we decided to do something similar again now virtually. So we have 5 medical students who are here, and they're going to tell this story because they're a little bit younger than me and closer in age to the influences of tobacco industry and the pressures, both the social pressures and the peer pressures for the use of tobacco, particularly vaping. And so let me just introduce our medical students. We have Jeremy Klein. We have, and they'll all introduce themselves when they get started as well, but we have Jeremy, we have Jasmine Feliciano, we have Juan Cerezo, we have Tochi Ogbana, and then we have Sean Brown. And we also have some experts who we've invited to be a part of this panel. We have Molly Piscatano from the American Lung Association. She's going to be available to speak to some health policy and also some cessation resources through the American Lung Association. We have Megan Jacobs from Truth Initiative, who is our vaping expert, and she's going to speak to us about the use of these products and also some of the cessation services that are provided by Truth Initiative. And then we have 2 folks from the Advocacy Institute. We have Tiffany Rodriguez and we have Diana Brown, who is a youth leader. And these guys are going to speak to us about the work that the Advocacy Institute is doing here in Philadelphia to increase awareness and advocacy around tobacco and youth vaping. So without any further ado, I'm going to let our medical students get started. And thank you again for everyone who's here. And as Dr. Offit said, at the end of this, we will have a Q&A session, and then we will send out an email to all those who registered with all of the resources and links that we've provided during this talk. And we'll also select one registrant at random for the $100 raffle prize. Okay, thank you.
Good evening, everybody. Again, welcome to this year's International Adolescent Health Week webinar. My name's Sean. I'm one of the 4th year medical students. Tonight, our talk is going to be all about vaping, especially among young people. We're going to try to make this as interactive as possible to get you guys sort of thinking, and would really love and appreciate your participation. We're going to have some questions sort of scattered throughout the talk. Some that are multiple choice. It'll show up as a poll and you'll be able to vote anonymously. And there will be others that are more open-ended, and you can essentially just type in the chat what your answer is. I think we might also have the opportunity for you guys to raise your hand, and you can unmute and speak up if you have any additional comments, but that will be more based on time that we have. So this is the outline for tonight. So we're going to begin by talking about the industry and influencers and sort of how big tobacco marketed cigarettes and tobacco and vaping, the effects that it has on your body, the rules, so like the policy and the laws behind a lot of the vaping and tobacco use, as well as what you can do. So how you can get involved in advocacy, and also some of the cessation resources that Dr. Garfield was mentioning. So we're going to start off with an open-ended question. And this is a safe space. So you can, put whatever you think is the answer to this question in the chat. So the question is, what flavoring was used as a way to target certain populations or certain communities in the United States? And I'm going to have like one of my colleagues, either Jeremy, Juan, Tochi, or Jasmine, just monitor the chat.
We have one answer already. Someone said cotton candy.
Okay.
And somebody else said menthol.
Yeah, I think someone got it.
Mint. Mm-hmm.
Yeah. So it's we have a big hint on the screen actually. So the answer is menthol. And when menthol flavored cigarettes is inhaled, it can reduce airway pain and irritation from cigarette smoke, sort of suppressing cough, and it gives smokers the illusion that they're breathing more easily. And so that's kind of why it was marketed that way. Our second question is actually a poll question, so you'll be able to vote anonymously. And the question is, which US population was targeted by menthol flavored tobacco? So we'll give it a couple seconds. Give it a couple seconds. Right. So it should pop up once we close the polls, the percentages for each of the answer choices. So what do we think? What do we think? Yeah, so 67% of you guys got the answer right. So because of how tobacco has long-term effects on your body, and also that, a specific demographic was targeted, this makes this not only a public health issue, but also a social justice issue. And it's extremely concerning, right? When you think about how influential this marketing strategy is on today's smokers. More than 8 in 10 African-American smokers actually use menthol cigarettes today. So if you line up 10 African-Americans that smoke cigarettes, 8, 9, or 10 are most likely to be smoking menthol cigarettes. African-Americans also disproportionately die from tobacco-related diseases in comparison to other racial and ethnic groups. So the marketing schemes that were employed during the 1960s to the 1980s still have significant impacts on our communities today. So this slide shows you some of the early advertisements by the Big Tobacco. And these ads were meant to make tobacco use look sexy and cool. They were geared towards the youth. The companies were allowed to market their products at festivals, clubs, concerts, and other events where young people are more likely to attend. And they even have them in some of the advertisements that you can see here. So our next question that we have, and this is not a poll question. This is one where you can type in the chat, and I'll have one of my colleagues monitor the chat. So which one is an actual Big Tobacco mascot aimed at teens and young adults? So Bosco, the wildly popular Bobcat, Jingo Jango, the French mime, the baby, or Joe, the cool camel? What do you guys think? I see some stuff coming in.
Yep. Someone said Joe the camel, the baby, and the baby.
Okay. Yeah,
Jingle.
so whoever said D, Joe the cool camel, in the leather jacket and sunglasses is correct. So if you've ever seen this brand of cigarettes, it's marketed in a way that makes cigarette smoking look cool, right? So now by this point in the talk, you might be asking yourself, why is he talking about cigarettes? Isn't this talk supposed to be about vaping? Well, cigarette advertising and vaping advertising actually have a lot of things in common. Vaping advertising is just big tobacco marketing their products again. In the last few years, the advertisements from the 1960s and 1980s, comparison to the ones in the last few years, basically look identical. They mirror each other. Like if you look down here, I don't know if you can see my pointer, but you see the woman sort of at the bottom here. It looks exactly the same. Like it looks like they copied and pasted and just changed a few words on there, right? So they're using, the same tactics, like these advertisements, or infiltrating the experiences that are popular among young people to promote and sell their products. And these companies have used cartoon images or imitated food products like, breakfast cereals, churros, Cracker Jacks, that are all sort of more or appeal more to young people. And although there have been some policy changes, as we'll sort of get into later, Big Tobacco has found ways around these laws to be successful at marketing their products. So we have one more question, or I have one more question for you guys. So which of the following is not an actual e-juice flavor? And this is type in the chat. What do you guys think? And to be honest, when we were making this question, like I had no idea what the answer was, because all these sound plausible.
All right, we have some C's, a lot of C's, spacewalks.
Yeah.
Yep. And a couple of F's.
Yeah, we got like 2 or 3 F's. Oh, 1 B. Sour
Keep
worm.
guessing. No one's got it yet.
E, A,
Someone
C.
put A, B, C, D, E, F.
Yeah, so this is a hard question, like I said, because it all of these sound like they could be right. And the answer is actually A. So one of the biggest ways that Big Tobacco has marketed their vaping products to young adults is flavoring. Flavors act as the gateway for many who would not otherwise, use tobacco. 4 in 5 young adults who have ever used tobacco started by using a flavored product. Restrictions on the sale of flavored products are sort of starting to gain momentum, but we need more comprehensive bans on these products to protect people, and especially young people like you guys. And now I'll pass it over to my colleague, Juan.
Yeah. Hello, everyone. My name is Juan. Thanks, Sean. We're going to talk about the influencers. We'll just kind of follow up what Sean just started prompting you all up to, of how these big companies are promoting these products. So Sean mentioned these big companies, they heavily invest to ensure that their product is reaching the consumers, which has shifted over time. So these companies have transformed their products as well as their advertisement. What used to be cigarettes is now these vape pens. And what used to be advertisements like the one Sean showed you previously with the posters and billboards have also transformed to include celebrities. And now what we have influencers on all social media. So with that, we're going to start off with a question. This is another poll question. So just think about culture now. What do you feel influences your behavior the most? And a question should be popping up. So we have TikTok stars, we have singers, rappers, other artists. We have ads on social media like Facebook and Instagram. Or is it movies and shows, or is it more like what your other friends are doing? So we'll give you all a couple minutes. A couple seconds.
No wrong answers here too. This is what you think influences you the most.
Okay, we could probably start seeing the results. Yeah, and it looks like a lot of you, about half of you, put what your friends or peers do. And then, you know, some of you put singers and rappers and shows, and you know, that's understandable, especially at a young age. You see all these shows, you see all these artists, especially the young artists doing all these things. And, you know, it's something you want to try. And if you see your other friends doing it, you might feel prompted to do it. But what we want you to learn from this is, you can go to the next slide, is that these big companies are also changing the way they promote these products. And now they have basically, in addition to changing to vape pens, their new target audience is you guys. So you can go to the next slide. And here's some examples of how they're catering to young people. Here we have influencers from TikTok, Instagram, promoting all these trends with vape pens. And, you know, if this starts popping up all over your feed, it's hard to not want to get involved or see your friends get involved. You can go to the next slide. So here's another question for you all. Which celebrities have you seen in photos with cigarettes or vape products? There's another question that should be popping up. So, you know, is it Leo DiCaprio, Kanye West? Those are all actors. Is it artists like 21 Savage or Tiger, or you think it's all the above?
Yeah, I don't even know if I know the answers to this question, actually.
Yeah. Honestly, when I first saw this question, I don't want to assume any of these people are doing it. Someone wrote, I don't know any of them. It's a good answer. And yeah, this is, you know, it's kind of one of those questions where you see all these names and it's all the above. But yeah, basically what we're showing here is that it's actors, artists, rappers, and from all different types of backgrounds doing these products. You could go to the next slide. And here we want to show you an example. So here we're going to show a music video with Justin Bieber, you know, a very famous young artist. You want you to notice right there, they're doing the vape pen, and then right there, product placement. They put the product right there in the music video itself. You can go to the next slide. So after seeing something like that, what do you feel about that? Here's another question for you all, another poll question. So what is your reaction seeing vaping cigarettes in music videos such as that one, or in shows like Euphoria, which is currently a very popular show? And you know, it's anonymous, you could be honest. We could probably see where the poll looks now. And it looks like, you know, the answers were all over the place. Some of you said it's cool and edgy. A third of you said it makes me upset, it's unhealthy. Another third said they haven't really thought about it. And it seems like 2 of you said it's not really a big deal. What do my colleagues think of these answers?
Yeah, this is kind of what I was expecting to see it all over the place. It's hard though. It makes me upset to see it, but I can understand that it's going to be in these videos, in these music videos, and I think it does influence a lot of younger people.
Oh yeah, I agree, Jeremy. I think it's hard to have a reaction when you first notice it, but that's kind of the point. They do it so discreetly, and you know, when you start watching these music videos, it could affect young people. So you can go to the next slide. And this is just another short clip, which we want to continue to emphasize this point that now tobacco companies even go deeper into targeting specific young people. So this is from this Truth Initiatives, and is how these big tobacco companies are promoting specifically to African Americans.
3 years ago, I accepted an internship with Truth Initiatives. At the time, I thought I knew everything I needed to know about tobacco. Yes, it could be deadly, but my generation was rejecting it in much larger numbers. But what I knew was just the beginning. Today, tobacco-related diseases are still the #1 cause of death in the African American community. And that's not a coincidence. During my time with Truth Initiative, I read dozens of research articles and stacks of internal documents directly from tobacco industry files. I learned that the tobacco industry strategically and successfully infiltrated my community. And while it's true that they targeted many groups, the targeting of the Black community has been uniquely damaging.
Critics charge that the tobacco companies view Black smokers as a growing source of income. In fact, they say, Blacks are the target of carefully plotted and highly specific marketing campaigns.
For decades, the tobacco companies have used predatory practices aimed to push their deadly product onto the Black community. Practices that contribute to the approximately 45,000 Black people who will die every year from tobacco-related diseases. This film, Black Lives, Black Lungs, is part of my effort to turn my anger into action.
Yeah, and that emphasizes a point that Sean made earlier with the flavorings, how they're trying to cater to certain populations. And you can watch the whole video on their website of the Truth Initiative. It's very interesting. But after watching that, how does that make you feel? Like, how do you think how do you think rules should be made so that these companies can show these ads? So here's another poll question. This is a yes or no question. Do you think there should be rules against the way these companies promote these products? We could probably see the answers now. Yeah, and I'm actually surprised. It's like a 50-50 split. So you could click again, Sean. So there are rules that ban promotion for cigarettes and advertisement of cigarettes, but right now there actually is no rules for the vape pens and the e-cigarettes, which is why you may see some of them on your social media. But the point would be to stop the promotion to young people, so because smoking, which you're going to learn the effects about, is something that can affect you in the long term. So I'm going to pass it on to my colleague Jeremy to kind of tell you about this.
All right, everybody. So I'm going to talk briefly about the effects of e-cigarette use. So one that's you may have seen either yourself or people that you know, which is dependence and addiction. And continuously using vapes or e-cigarettes can become a habit-forming behavior. We also don't know the long-term effects from vaping. A lot of the cartridges in the e-juice that is used in vapes is unregulated by the it's unregulated in the sense that companies don't have to actually publish what's in their cartridges. And Sean mentioned this earlier. I think that using e-cigarettes increases your likelihood of trying other harmful substances. And at the bottom here on the left, you see the CT scan, which is an imaging study. And this is what healthy lungs look like. So you should see a lot of black on the CT scan, which is air. And then if you look on the one on the right, which is E-Valley, so that's one of the diseases that is associated with vaping. So it's called e-cigarette associated lung injury. And you can see there that those lungs don't look the same as the one on the left, and they look a lot less black, which means a lot less air, and their lungs are not as healthy, and they're pretty damaged in this one. And then next line, Sean. So here's another poll question. Nicotine is something that is in a lot of e-cigarettes. So if you could just click on the answer that you think, what do you think nicotine does to your developing brain? So do you think it impacts your mood, makes it harder to pay attention? Does it make you more impulsive? Or does it give you a head rush? So pick the best answer. And Jacob is a very smart person, but we'll see what everyone else says here. All right, there we go. All right, nice. So we have basically every answer. So the answer, this is one of those trick questions that you hate when your professor does it, but we did it. So, this is what nicotine can do all of these are things that happen when you smoke or vape nicotine. And then Sean, if you could click it once more. So nicotine affects your developing brain, your attention, your learning, your mood, and your impulse control. And our brains develop until we're about 25 or 26. So these are very important years of our life where it's not good to use substances. All right, next slide. All right, so this is good. We're going to try to go through this quickly because we're a little short on time. So this is a true false section. So as Sean clicks, one question will pop up. And if you could just put in the chat if you a T if you think this statement is true, or an F if you think it's false. So e-cigarette companies target younger populations to increase their profits. So do you think these companies want to maximize their profits? I see a lot of T's.
Yeah.
Yeah. So
You guys paid attention.
that's kind of the gist of this talk. All right, next one, Sean. That's so true is correct. All right. Vaping devices are not considered safe alternatives to smoking. What do you guys think? True or false?
See a lot of T's. And there's a rumor I hear people say too.
All right, so we got a few, mostly trues and a few falses. So this is a little bit more of a challenging question, but for younger people, especially people that don't use cigarettes, vaping devices are not safe alternatives to cigarettes. And even people that smoke a lot of cigarettes, it's still not considered a safe cessation method to switching to vaping. Next slide, Sean, or next paragraph. All right, the only toxic chemical in vape juice is nicotine. What do you all think, true or false? The only toxic chemical is nicotine. All right, good. So a lot of falses here. Yeah, there's over 30 chemicals that have been found in vape juice. It is not just nicotine, and it's not just flavoring. So, and actually some of these chemicals, when they're heated or when they're atomized in the vapor, they actually turn into even more harmful chemicals. All right, e-cigarettes produce harmless water vapor, true or false? All right, good, lots of falses. So that's correct. E-cigarettes, when they first came out, I think a lot of people thought e-cigarettes were just water vapor, but you also, they make heavy metals, compounds, and other fine particles that form in the smoke or in the vape when you use a e-cigarette. And the next one, it is more common to get stuck both smoking and vaping. So this is something called dual use. So do you think a lot of people, when they start vaping, they also start, or they continue smoking cigarettes? This one's a little harder. All right, I like the honesty. So yeah, this one's hard. I think the point here is that dual use is a very popular side, or a popular effect of people that start vaping. They will start using cigarettes and vape because vaping is it depends on the person. Yeah, vaping is very convenient, but cigarettes, some people may like how they feel. But the point here is don't do either of them, and just be aware that dual use, using both of them, is a common product of this. All right, last one. There is no safe level of tobacco product use. What do we all think here? Might be a little bit of an easy one to end on, but it's an important one nonetheless. So there is no safe level of tobacco product use. Tobacco is, we have known for many, many years that tobacco is dangerous and continues to be dangerous. All right, so I'm gonna pass it on over to Tochi now to talk about some of the policies involved with vaping.
Okay, so hey guys, my name is Tochi. In the next couple slides, we're going to discuss the policy and legislation surrounding both vaping and e-cigarettes. So we're going to start in 2016, and this is when free samples of e-cigarettes were actually prohibited. But I think it's interesting to first note that e-cigarettes were actually introduced into the US market in 2006. So they've been in the market for 10 years, and they've steadily been gaining traction, and they actually peaked in popularity in around 2011 to 2015. And during this time, they also found that it gained popularity amongst the youth and young adults. In 2018, they actually required all tobacco products to require nicotine warning labels. And this was great because one, tobacco users who currently use were actually given the idea or would have to see the labels, and that told them that this obviously would have an adverse health effect. But it was also helpful because those who didn't currently use tobacco, it was also kind of like a warning or preventing label that would hopefully discourage them from trying tobacco in the first place. But what's interesting, in the year prior, in 2017, they actually asked tobacco product companies to stop using words like light, mild, or low, or other descriptors similar, because that kind of gave false hope that maybe this tobacco product is healthier, or maybe it was a better alternative to, you know, other tobacco products that didn't have this type of language use. And then in 2019, we have Act 112, and this essentially raised the legal age to 21 years of age in order to buy any tobacco products. So this was helpful in preventing tobacco products being introduced to those younger than the age of 21. And what's interesting is that the FDA, to enforce this rule, they actually have secret shoppers or undercover shoppers that are younger than the age of 18, and they actually go to these retail stores and attempt to buy the tobacco products. And if they are allowed to buy the tobacco products by the person behind the cash register, the store itself is actually, the FDA is notified about the store itself, and action can be taken. And then in 2020, we have two things that occur. We have the Congress passing the Preventing Online Sales of E-Cigarettes to Children Act. And this does four main things, all that are extremely helpful in the fight against e-cigarette use, especially use amongst those younger than 21. The first being that sale and delivery of all products through mail will be taxed. It reiterates that, you know, those under 21 should not be allowed to buy these products. And it actually asks the Postal Service to implement regulations to prevent the mailing of these e-cigarettes, especially to those under the age of 21. And one thing that was actually cool about this law that Congress passed is that it actually asks NIH, or the National Institute of Health, to study the effects of the health impact that e-cigarettes would have on the youth and young adults. Also in 2020, we have the flavor ban. So essentially this banned all flavor cartridges that were non-disposable. And you may think this sounds great because, as Sean said earlier, 4 to 5 young people actually are introduced to e-cigarettes because of the flavoring that they offer. But what a lot of retailers have actually ended up doing is now providing an alternative to that non-disposable flavor cartridges. They now provide the option to buy flavor cartridges that are actually disposable. So although this law was a great start, it kind of didn't do much, because now retailers are giving the opportunity for a lot of young people and a lot of people who already use e-cigarettes to once again get the flavors that they wanted from the start. So the incentive to try e-cigarettes or any type of vaping is still available in all stores. And then lastly, we have the Clean Indoor Act. So this act was actually made or developed in 2008. It prohibits smoking in public places unless you're in certain bars or cigar shops, and it actually doesn't include smoking in private residences, private social functions, or tobacco shops. And so although this seems like a good start, say someone is smoking on their own private property or in their yard, and you're their next door neighbor, obviously smoke can travel, can go into ventilation, and even though they're on their private property, the smoke is still affecting you. So unfortunately, especially here in Philadelphia, you have a lot of close quarters, a lot of apartment complexes, row homes. So if someone's smoking on their own personal property, they're well within their right. But those cigarette smoke can still affect you as well. So I think we need to do a better job of really restricting smoking and where smoking can actually be done. And of course, you know, it doesn't include vaping. So the big question is, when will vaping be included as well? And so we have a couple of local laws towards e-cigarettes and cigarette smoke in general in Philadelphia. The main ones to notice is first that Philadelphia restricts the number of tobacco retailers to 1 per 1,000 people in each planning district, and prohibits new tobacco retailers within 500 feet of a school. And so although this sounds nice and it sounds appealing, we have to remember that Philadelphia is a very has a very dense population. So 1 every 1,000 is not that great. I mean, I'm sure you guys can think of how many stores, how many corner stores, or think about a store that you probably went to today that has tobacco products for sale. And then we also have that Philadelphia prohibits the sale of all flavored e-cigarettes and the sale of cartridges or pods containing more than 20 milligrams per milliliter of nicotine, except in adult-only stores. And once again, that's a great start, but as long as they're well within that 20 milligram limit, they can still be sold. So it's still available to the public. And then lastly, Philadelphia prohibits the sale of flavored cigarette loaves.
All right. So now you have all this great information. So now we want to share kind of some action items of what you can do. So, you are invited to this talk, especially because you are leaders in your homes, in your schools, in your communities. And just by nature of you being here, there's so much that you can do with all this new knowledge that you've gained. So we're going to talk a little bit about, the power of being able to talk. We are going to talk a little bit about engaging, and then as well as enacting or other tangible things that you can do to move policy work forward. So one of the things that we wanted to encourage you to do is, seems kind of simple, just the power of talking to one another and spreading what you've learned today. So we want to encourage you to share with your family, your friends, your teachers, your neighbors, whoever's willing to have, conversations with you about these things that you've learned today. You've learned some pretty significant things, including the fact that, the vaping industry has targeted youth, has targeted, African-American communities, and all of the work that needs to be done in policy work. So next time, you're watching your favorite shows together, someone offers you a vape, you see an ad at a store, or and if somebody asks you what you did today, feel free to share. I also want to share some pointers. Just always remember the power of using non-judgmental words and tone, being open to listening to other people's, experiences is so very powerful in having conversation and moving conversation forward. And then knowing the things that you learned today, right? And knowing the facts is something that's really important as well. And resources that we'll end up sharing with you as well. So in this portion, engaging, we wanted to talk to you as well about the power of social media, right? We've seen, the videos on YouTube, the TikTok stars, different celebrities under the section that Juan shared in influencers, and how the industry is using that to promote and continue to target youth, right? So we want to take that power back, and some of the things is using social media to take that power back. So spreading correct information and spreading the truth through social media is something that's so important, and that now that you have this knowledge, we want to definitely empower you to do that. And then of course, the power of blocking and reporting, right? So you see something, you see an ad that shouldn't be there, you see a video that, is promoting these activities, use that blocking and reporting to move the message forward. And then finally, enacting. So we talked a lot about the policies that exist, both, national policies and also local policies. But Tochi also talked a little bit about all the work that we still have to do and the room that still exists to do this work. So we're just talking about the ability of contacting our local or state representatives. And we have some representatives here that are part of organizations that already do this work. So you don't have to feel like you're starting from scratch or you're alone in this type of work. So the next slide just shows a little bit about, it's a template that shows how you can, reach out to your local representatives, showing you that there are things that exist. And we're going to share with you as well, there's a link of how to find your representative and how to contact them. But there are templates that are in place that make reaching out to them and spreading this information a lot easier. So I think we're going to hear from some people next, some representatives next.
Awesome. Hi, everyone. My name is Tiffany Rodriguez. I am a program coordinator with the Advocacy Institute. The Advocacy Institute is a youth empowerment program, and we support young people in making sustainable changes in the community through community, policy, and social media advocacy. Now, the Real Talk Tobacco program is one of the programs within the Advocacy Institute. And in that program, you will be able to, if you plan on joining, we are accepting applications for that, and I'll talk a little bit about that later. However, that Real Talk Tobacco is a youth program where we sort of teach and educate young people on tobacco and vaping prevention. So a lot of what we talked about today and a lot of what you guys heard these amazing presenters present today, you will learn in this program. It's a 10 to 12 week program, once a week. And on top of also learning about tobacco and vaping, you also will gain some skills and be trained in public health advocacy, and as well as public speaking, as well as also gaining some skills in professional development, which is also great for young people. And as I add the link to the chat, because we are accepting applications, like I mentioned, I will add the application link to the chat, and that will take you directly to our Real Talk Tobacco application. And also, not to mention, we also love to pay young people for their time. So this is a paid opportunity, as well as also learning all these amazing skills. But as I'm putting the application link in the chat, I'm going to hand the mic over to one of our youth leaders, Diana Brown, to talk a little bit about her experience in the program. I'll share the mic to her.
Hi everyone, my name is Diana, and I'm with the Advocacy Institute, as Ms. Tiffany talked about and recognized. I first joined AI the summer of 2019, and I first was like just an advocate, and I was a part of the cohorts called Real Talk Tobacco and Young City Planners Initiative, where we took action in our communities to talk about things and make action plans on things in our community that we felt most important to and connected with. So back in 2019, I worked on the Kensington project, and making better and promoting better health in Kensington. And my role at first, like I said, was an advocate. And then the fall of 2020, of my sophomore year of high school, I became a peer coach. And since I have been with the Advocacy Institute, my public speaking skills have improved. And also I got to talk and email with legislators to talk about things that are most important to me and in my community, and how I can change and make change in the community. And I have also educated people in my school and different things on the tobacco, about how tobacco and everything is not really good for you. And yeah.
Thanks, Diana. That was really great to hear from a student's perspective and their involvement with the Advocacy Institute. So my name is Molly Pisitano, and as mentioned earlier, I'm with the American Lung Association. So I'm here to talk about our statewide youth tobacco prevention program. We do work closely with the Advocacy Institute, specifically in Philadelphia. And so true, the tobacco resistance unit is statewide. And unfortunately, we weren't able to have a student join us this evening, but we do have, last year, almost 1,000 students involved in True. Previously, prior to the pandemic, we had a lot more students involved, so we're hoping to continue to grow it. And we do a lot of exciting advocacy work as well, along with the Advocacy Institute every year. For instance, we attend, prior to the pandemic, we visited the Capitol in Harrisburg to meet with legislators and share student stories about the dangers of e-cigarettes in schools, and why they want to see funding for tobacco control programs, and why they want to see our clean indoor air law strengthened. And previously, a lot of students advocated for Tobacco 21. So a lot of exciting work is done at Day at the Capitol, and a lot of exciting tobacco education initiatives and activities take place throughout the year. So as I mentioned, it is an education movement. It's peer-to-peer education throughout the whole state to help you to stay tobacco free. And there are scholarship opportunities as well. For those who join True, there's the chance to apply to become a youth ambassador. And as you can see on this slide, anyone involved in True can apply this summer to be involved during the next school year. And as I mentioned, there's a lot of exciting activities that take place, and we sort of wrap up the year with our advocacy event known as Day at the Capitol every May. So you can see the link there to learn more on this slide, but I'm also going to add it into the chat so you can just access the website. It's trunpa.org. So feel free to check it out, and we'd love to have you join True if you're not already. And then work with amazing youth like Diana and the Advocacy Institute too. So in addition to our youth programs and our education programs, there are also resources to help people quit through the American Lung Association, especially if you know not only any family members, but maybe some peers and classmates who are looking to get help with quitting. So first we have the Vape Free Schools Initiative, which helps schools to implement or strengthen their smoke-free, vape-free, and tobacco-free policy. And it also helps school administrators to implement some of our programs that I'll talk about here in a moment to offer cessation classes in the schools. And a couple of these classes are known as, that you'll see on the slide, in-depth. It stands for Intervention for Nicotine Dependence, Education, Prevention, Tobacco, and Health. So it's a long one. So the acronym is short, in-depth. And it's an alternative to suspension from vaping and using tobacco products on the school campus. So instead of getting trouble for getting caught with these products, the idea is that this program will help students with their addiction and really help guide them to hopefully wanting to quit these products. And that is now also an online training. And then when those who are ready to quit using vapes and other tobacco products, they can take part in our Not on Tobacco program, which is a vaping and cessation online. Now this program is also available online, but again, can be offered in schools to help students quit. There's also always assistance available over the phone at our lung helpline to help teens ages 13 to 17 with quit plans to stop tobacco and vaping, and the number is there on the slide. And there's a lot of other information as well at TrueMPA and lung.org. So happy to help any questions or help people at any time.
All right, so just a few more resources here. Is someone else going to cover this slide, or do you want me to?
This is me.
Go through it?
Hi, everyone. I'm Megan. I work at
great.
Youth Initiative. I'm the product manager, which means I oversee product development for all of our quitting programs that we run out of Truth Initiative. And the one I'm going to be talking about today is called This is Quitting. You maybe have seen ads on it or things affiliated with Truth commercials or TikTok. Truth has a pretty big presence. And of course, we talk a lot about This is Quitting because This is Quitting is our text message quit vaping program. To date, over 430,000 teens and young adults have used this program to help them on their quitting journey. It's a text message program. It's really simple to get started. You just text Ditch Vape to 88709. It's completely free and anonymous. It's confidential and it's evidence-based. So we've run some clinical trials demonstrating how effective it is. We saw in a recent trial among young adults that it increased the odds of quitting by about 40% in 18 to 24-year-olds. And we're really proud of how this program helps young people empower themselves to become their best quitting expert. And we put the support of thousands of other people right in your pocket. So the way it works is you just sign up. Again, text Ditch Vape to 88709. If you're ready to set a quit date, you can. If you're not ready, you don't have to, and you'll start getting daily text messages to help guide you through the quitting process, give you tips, give you support, give you ways to get on-demand support if you're having a craving or you've slipped or you're feeling stressed. And what's really cool about the program is that most of the messages have been written by other young people. So we give all of our users the opportunity to submit messages to add to the program. And so every time you get a message, you're getting a tip or a strategy about, from someone else who's gone through this process, who knows what it feels like to quit and who knows what you're going through and can reassure you that, you're not doing it wrong. If it's hard, that's normal. If you're succeeding and you feel great, that's awesome. And we want to celebrate with you. So This is Quitting is really powerful support to have right in your pocket. And it's available to anyone in the US. Truth Initiative also has a variety of different advocacy efforts going on all the time. I'm going to put one link in the chat right now about a moment of action that we're having on April 27th, which is a way for young people to collectively take action and declare, to policymakers that they want to reclaim their breath against big tobacco and nicotine. So you can go to that URL to learn more. There are a variety of other advocacy efforts that Truth Initiative has going on all the time. You saw Lincoln's video earlier in here, and so you can always check out what's going on at thetruth.com and find ways to get involved. Can you go to the next slide? I just have a quick slide here about some things that our users have said that they like about the program. I'll let you read those for yourself. You don't need me to read it. And I also know that we're running pretty short on time here, so I don't want to take up too much more time, but I will be on for the Q&A portion here.
Thanks, Megan. Sorry, I almost stole your thunder there. So these are just additional resources. We will let you all, we'll send this all to you at the conclusion of this talk today, but these are different websites. So notforme.org, it's an online program. Smoke-free text, so you can text quit to 47848, similar to a program that Megan was talking about. And here is another 1-800-QUIT-NOW number, which offers one-on-one coaching support. And then Quick Start is actually an app. And Sean, if you could click right here, this is what the app looks like. So I was looking at it on the App Store. It's a very popular app, and it looks like it has a pretty interactive interface. So you can, similar to what Megan was talking about, if you're having a craving or you slipped or you want to just have some more information about vaping, you can click on these different icons and it pops up with some quotes and information and stuff like that. So now we can jump on into our Q&A. So we're a little short on time, but Dr. Garfield talked about, kind of introduced everyone originally, but here's the list of people that are involved in our Q&A. And Sean will get started with the first question here.
Yeah, so I have a question for Dr. Garfield. Like, imagine I use a vape. If vaping is so bad for me, like, why haven't I gotten sick from it?
So that's a good question. I think that's one of the reasons why people believe these products are safe, because they have been using them for however so long and don't feel sick. And the truth is that we don't have any regulation or control on what's in these products. And so maybe sometimes the products don't cause harm in the moment, but we really don't know what happens over the long term. We have one example in the recent history of a terrible, really epidemic of lung injury from vaping products, which happened in 2019, which was called EVALI, and Jeremy talked about this. And otherwise healthy kids and young adults were actually dying from just exposure to these, what seemed like really otherwise safe vaping products. And there's really no reason to believe that this couldn't happen again, because the products continue to be poorly regulated. So the substance that was put in the vape devices in 2019, which caused the EVALI epidemic, could be inserted into a product that is developed in the next few months. So you don't know what's in these products, and you can't know that they're safe. So you may have been okay thus far, but there's I don't believe that that these products are safe, and I think that you continue to be at risk if you continue to use these products.
Okay, for our next question, this would be for Megan from the Truth Initiative, which you kind of touched on, started touching upon a little bit. But if I'm smoking, how can I quit? And what support is there for cessation for teens? And where are the 12-step meetings for smokers / vapers?
Yeah, so a bunch of us on this call tonight have talked about different quitting resources that are available, and I know we'll be sending those out to everyone, so I won't belabor them too much. I do want to address that question though about where are the 12-step programs. Different things work for different people, and even for people who try one thing and it works for a while, they may find that it doesn't work for them long term, and they need to experiment with different ways to go about quitting and different ways to get through hard times without using tobacco. So there's not one program that's going to be a silver bullet. I think it's really amazing how many different resources there are out there. 12-step programs are traditionally ones that we see for people who are trying to get to a place of sobriety from alcohol. There's not a lot of evidence from a randomized trial perspective behind those types of programs. And we've seen that for teens and young adults, especially, in-person classes have a really low, what we call scalability, which means that unfortunately, they just can't reach very many people at one time, right? By their very nature, they're limited to however many people are in the group. And we've got a big problem with youth and young adult vaping right now. We have over 2 million teenagers in this country who are vaping. Unfortunately, we're not going to be able to solve that with exclusively something like in-person classes because they just can't reach enough people at any given time. And we've got population level problem. We need population level solutions. So I do think that there are some in-person resources that are available. Some of them were talked about tonight, but there are also lots of other technology-based resources that I have a lot of confidence will be able to help us really turn this epidemic around.
Thank you, Megan. Just so everyone knows, we're going to try to get through a couple more questions since there was a bunch submitted ahead of time. So the next one will be from Molly. And, because we know how vaping is pretty dangerous and has a lot of adverse effects now, why do you think vaping was ever allowed by the CDC in the first place? You're muted, Molly.
Thanks, Jeremy. And I have my son here who agrees that vaping is dangerous, just to tell everyone. He woke up, he's getting, yeah, anyways. But so what happened is the CDC didn't allow e-cigarettes to come on the market, but they do have a lot of information, on why these products are so dangerous as well. So they definitely have a lot of resources. But what happened was, as you heard earlier in the presentation, these products came out in the later 2000s and had a long time to become popular in the market, because it wasn't until 2016 that you might be thinking of the FDA, the Federal, the Food and Drug Administration. They in 2016 said that they would, they considered e-cigarettes then a tobacco product so that they would be able to regulate them, because that was part of the issue, that since they were so new, they weren't considered a tobacco product, and the FDA wasn't able to regulate them and really see what was inside these products and determine if they were allowed to be on the market. And in 2016, they said they were going to do that. But of course, that process takes a really long time, and the tobacco industry ends up, suing, and there are a lot of lawsuits. And unfortunately, during that time, these products became increasingly popular. In 2015, if you remember, Juul became really popular. And then, as you saw earlier, all these products became popularized in social media and by celebrities. So by the time they actually required these vaping companies to submit applications to be allowed on the market in 2020, there have been thousands of products already on the market, and so many products with over 7,000 flavors, as you learned. So unfortunately, there's just been a lot of circumstances that have allowed these products to be on the market and, and get popular and get teens addicted, unfortunately.
I had a quick question, either for Tiffany or Diana. I know we kind of already discussed ways to get people involved in the conversation when it comes to vaping, but I was just curious what you think, especially you, Diana, how we should engage students and classmates about effective ways that tobacco affects the body and how to prevent other students from starting vaping.
Yeah, so I can jump in, and then Diana, feel free to jump in after. One of the things that we like to tell our young people when they first join the program and in the beginning of the program is that, you know, if you smoke or you know someone who smokes, we do not like to judge you. We do not judge. That's something that we don't do. However, we are going to give you the facts and we are going to have real conversations and discussions about how these products are harmful and they are targeting you and your peers and your communities. So one of the things we like to tell young people is that if you know someone who smokes, talk to them, let them know what you learned today, or let them know what you learned throughout the program. It's very important that we get these facts out and we get, you know, we expose these tobacco and vaping companies because they're pure evil, you know, targeting young people, the way they target young people in certain communities is definitely terrible. So I don't know, Diana, if you wanted to jump in and had something to say, but that's kind of the gist of it. Get other people involved and also share the quitting resources that we all shared with you, because those are also extremely helpful.
Yeah, and I totally agree with Miss Tiffany. Like even at school when I be talking about vaping, because it's not really a big problem at my school, but I see a lot of because we go to like I go to a Catholic school, and so it's really strict. So they don't really put up with those type of things, so you get automatically expelled. But a lot of kids, you know, as teenagers, they still gonna try to find a way to like still vape in school and everything like that. So like when I be talking to my friends or different people, like we don't judge, and I don't judge anybody for if they do smoke or do that, but I do give them resources and I do give them tools, and I just have like a simple conversation and be like, hey, like for example, if I see like this one girl I saw did it, I was like, hey girl, you know, I said, what you doing? Or like what you, because I knew what she was doing, and I was like, you know, have you ever thought about like, you know, like what does that stuff have in there or how could it affect you and everything? And we just had a simple conversation, and it was just something that was really impactful. But you don't have to like, I don't like force myself, but you know, I just have like little open discussions if I see people or see my peers or something do it in my school personally.
All right. Do we want to do one more question and then the raffle? I know there was a question earlier that we were going to address. Is vaping better or worse than smoking weed? I know that we wanted to kind of elaborate on this. It was a great question that was put in the Q&A. So I don't know if Dr. Garfield or anybody.
Megan, do you want to answer that one or do you want me to answer it?
Yeah, I've got, I'd love to share some information. And if you have other things you want to add to it,
Please.
by all means.
No, please.
So nicotine and THC are two different drugs. THC is the psychoactive chemical that's in marijuana that makes you feel high or buzzed. And nicotine is the chemical that is in, you know, the drug that is in tobacco products that makes you feel a buzz. And both of those chemicals do different things to your brain and different things to your body. You know, vaping as a way of getting those chemicals into your body is very similar, but not totally the same, no matter what you're smoking or vaping. If you're smoking a cigarette or you're smoking a joint, you're burning something and you're breathing that combusted, you know, you're getting carcinogens into your body from the burning. If you're vaping something, you know, we've talked a lot about how unregulated a lot of these products are and how they just haven't been around long enough to know what the long-term effects are. I can tell you that I work with a lot of young vapors who, I mean, it doesn't almost matter what the long-term effects are. They're feeling short-term effects now. I mean, we've got hundreds of thousands of people who have signed up for This Is Quitting because they have dry mouth, they are getting headaches, their lungs don't feel right, they can't run as fast at track or play their trumpet as well, or, you know, they feel like it's affecting them mentally, which is part of what nicotine does. It chemically changes your brain. It makes you crave nicotine, you know, and nicotine is kind of a bad drug. It doesn't last very long. Like if you took Tylenol for a headache and it only lasted for 30 seconds, you'd probably be pretty upset, right? But it's sort of the same thing. We don't think about nicotine that way usually, but nicotine is a drug and it doesn't last very long. So any positive feelings that you get from it are very fleeting. And and that chemically has changed your brain to say, I don't feel as good. And now the thing that will make me feel better is more nicotine. And this is the cycle. This is that loop that people get caught in. And that's as true for young people as it is for older people. So, you know, I can't really, nicotine is an addictive drug. THC is not an addictive drug, but it can be habit forming. Dr. Garfield, I don't know if you want to speak more to that. You know, marijuana is not my area of expertise, but I do know that, you know, nicotine is extremely addictive. It's particularly addictive for young people, and it's particularly damaging for young people to use it because their brains are still developing.
Right. I will just add to that as a pulmonologist that the only thing that you should be putting in your lungs is clean, healthy air. And that I don't have a problem with cannabis and with THC. I think it's a drug that serves a purpose for a number of people. In the right situations, it's a very good drug. But I don't think anything should be combusted and inhaled. And I think that there are significant risks of vaping any products because of the lack of regulation. So it's not about THC or cannabis being a drug that I don't think has value. It's about vaping and combusting products that are unregulated and unsafe.
I would want
Those are great points. Thank you for that.
Sorry, I was going to just jump in because I think my opinion on THC and cannabis is not a good or bad sort of opinion, but the younger you are that you expose your brain to these substances, the more likely you are to develop addiction. And some statistics are out there that 1 in 6 young people that use marijuana or cannabis-based products do go on to develop addiction and have a hard time breaking free. So one of my refrains is always, if you're going to expose your brain to a substance that might create a craving for more, do that as late in your brain development as possible, which, as you know, our med students said earlier this evening, lasts until about the age of 24 or 25. So I just wanted to jump in with that. Thanks.
Thanks, Dr. Offit. Sorry, this is Molly. I just wanted to jump in and add to that as well. And I think that's why it's great that the tobacco, I know there was a question in the Q&A as well. It's great that the tobacco sales age was raised from 18 to 21. So now all retailers, and this is as of December 2020, all retailers can no longer sell, it's illegal to sell any tobacco product, including e-cigarettes, to anyone under the age of 21. So prior to that, you know, the majority of people who were addicted, you know, it was very likely to become addicted, you know, if they were younger than 18, and that's when the majority of people started. And now hopefully the fact that this law was, you know, the age was raised from 18 to 21, hopefully that will reduce the number of youth who become addicted, since your brain doesn't really fully develop, as Dr. Offit mentioned, until you're 25. So it's definitely a great law, and hope to see more youth no longer addicted to these products.
So thank you all for being a part of this webinar and for sticking around a few minutes after the hour. I know we've kept you to 10 minutes after the hour. Everything that we have shared with you today will be distributed via email. Any of the resources that we included or the tools. We're going to post this webinar in a few different locations, and we'll explain to you where this will be posted, so that if you want to share it with your friends or anyone at your school, we would love it if you did that. I want to announce that the winner of our $100 raffle prize is Tiffany Davis. So Tiffany, I will be getting in contact with you to figure out how I can get this raffle money to you. And thank you everyone for participating in the conversation. Thanks to our panelists and our medical students for delivering the content. We really appreciate everyone being around. Sorry, everyone couldn't win, but we're excited for Tiffany.
Congrats, Tiffany.
If anyone has any additional questions, we can certainly ask them, or I can respond to them via email. I see someone asked one question here, which maybe we can take right before we get off. Would anyone like to take this question? Why do people think vaping is less harmful than smoking?
I can talk for like a little bit on this one. I think part of it was mentioned earlier in that smoking is combustible and you have to light it. You have to light a cigarette. And we know for many, many years that cigarettes contain a lot of harmful chemicals and carcinogens in them. And I think when vaping first came around, it was sort of advertised as maybe something that was cleaner and had less carcinogens. But in reality, it's new technology and it's new chemicals that is being, when you heat it up when it gets hot in the atomizer, the vapor that you're actually breathing in, the chemicals have changed and we haven't studied them. Vaping is so new, we don't know what these chemicals are going to do to your lungs or to your brain. But I think that's the reason why initially people thought maybe vaping would be less harmful than smoking. But I think we're learning with EVALI and other diseases that it's really not that safe at all.
Jeremy, those are good points. I wanted to add too that with vaping, all the bright colors of the packaging and the advertisements and the different flavors as well, I think make youth feel that these products are safe when they're really not. I know I added this to Q&A earlier, but I know when I was younger and in college, I thought cigarillos were safe or didn't have tobacco just because they were flavored, when that's not really true at all. So the tobacco industry and the vaping industry really are tricky with their marketing and making you think that they're safe when they're really not.
All right. So everyone enjoy the rest of your evening and good luck with the rest of International Adolescent Health Week, Dr. Offit. And we will look forward to seeing the bright green colored skyline at the end of the week.
So much. This was a wonderful session.